the chat room right now, we can kind of have that for later. If you are willing to be coached on something, we're going to ask for that a little bit later as well. While people are filling that thing out in the chat room, so put your name in the hat if you want to be coached by us. If you look at Jeff's screen, we are going to give you so much information. We probably can't cover it all in the 27.5 minutes or whatever we have. If you go to kiwilive.com, password Zoom, what you'll get in there, there's 10 humor tips. There's all our contact information on how to get a hold of us. My program called the Humor Algorithm, I put the slide deck from that in there. That's a 4-week program. So that's more than we'll cover in 37 minutes. But we're going to cover today, but if anybody would test that out so I know it works, so I don't have to go back and fix it. But the password is Zoom. We're going to cover, how do you start? If you're not funny, how do you start? If you are funny, how do you create it in the moment? And we're also going to cover, why should we even care? What is important about humor and why should you use it every single day? And the first of us that is going to share their wisdom with us is a man who was a professional stand-up comic. He is the reigning District 4, I believe, humorous speech contest winner. Hi. He has not lost in 5 years, and he has fans, obviously they're saying hi. But he is so funny that the first time he ever did stand-up, he went up with one joke. That's it. That's how confident he is in what he's about to tell you. But he is going to talk to you about how to create humor. If you're not there yet, what do you do to start? Please welcome Cody Cotulla.
Hey, thank you. Thank you, Ray. Yes, I like to think I did go up on stage the first time. I was in the Army at the time. I went up on stage with one joke, and this was the joke. It's not a great joke. This is a joke. I was 20 years old, and the joke was, my friends drink beer, and then but they say that beer does not affect them. And then they go out to bars, drink beer, get drunk, and go home with ugly women. That was the joke. And that got no laughs, much like now. No one laughed at that joke. And so I sat there in silence, hoping to come up with something funny to say, like what happened with my friends, but I didn't. It was just absolute silence. And then someone in the audience yelled out, "Yeah, that's why you're going home with an ugly woman." That actually got a laugh. And then I responded with, "Yes, I'll be going home with your date." And that got a gigantic laugh. And it kind of taught me a couple things about comedy. First thing I learned about comedy was that if you want to be funny in the situation, the best way to be funny is to bring something funny with you. That's material. And the next thing I learned that it was being on stage and being funny was nothing like what I expected. I like to think that there are 3 types of funny, 3 ways that we laugh in life. We laugh when someone says something accidentally funny. That's the most common. You'll just be saying something and people will laugh and you go, "Wow, I didn't mean that to be funny." Then there's the second one, is the spontaneous comment, which is what happened in that moment when that guy yelled out, "Yeah, that's why you'll be going home with an ugly woman." He was making a spontaneous comment, he got a laugh. And then I made a spontaneous comment, "Yes, I'll be going home with your date," got a bigger laugh. And the spontaneous comment, that's the most admired type of comedy. We all want to be the person with the quick wit. But the danger of the spontaneous comment is like what happened with me, which was, I made everybody in the audience laugh, except probably, I think, that one guy, the guy who I commented, he didn't laugh. And you know who else didn't laugh? His date. She probably didn't think that was funny. And so that's the risk, right? And then the third type of being funny is the joke, the funny story. And of the 3, accidentally being funny, most common, spontaneous comment, being funny in the moment, which is the most dangerous, but most admired. The joke is the only type of being funny that you can actually practice, right? It's the only type of funny that you can test and iterate with. And so whenever anybody says to me about, "Oh, how should I start off being funny?" I say, start listening to comedy, start hearing jokes, start sharing jokes with people, because a joke is a funny piece of comedy. It's transportable, something you can carry with you. So that's always, I think, the best way of getting started. I'll talk more about it. I don't want to spend all the time on it. Jump over to talking to Jeff about, other ways to be funny. So let me pass it off to Jeff.
Let me introduce Jeff for people that don't know him. This gentleman is the past creative director of Second City, which is where most of the people from Saturday Night Live get started. He's actually the second youngest person ever hired by Second City. The first youngest person would be John Belushi. So please welcome the man who now leads the Players Workshop, which is also a very famous improv school, Mr. Jeff Rodgers.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Ray. Thanks, everybody. Great stuff, Cody. I agree with everything that you're leading down the path there. It really is, you know, there are some absolute ways that you can walk on stage and feel comfortable with some humor. There's some humor that you can really test out, and like Cody said, iterate. So I'm an improviser, and I really try and practice that state of being present in the moment. I think of presentations as conversations. I never want to be talking to my audience. I want to be talking with my audience. And when I do that, that means I have to be present right there. And that helps me as an improviser. And if I can get any of you and all of you to be comfortable enough to do that and be in that space, what you discover when you're an improviser is that you're less going for a joke, which is a completely valid and great way of bringing humor with you. But another way of doing it is to realize that there are universal truths that we all share. And when you're an improviser, you can acknowledge those in the moment. And so when somebody's phone rings during your presentation, you have a choice. You can either acknowledge that that just happened for everybody in the room, it was a shared experience, or you can ignore it, right? And try and keep moving on. Depending on the situation, you have a choice to make. Now, if it's me, whenever I hear a phone ring, I always ask, would you like us all to step out? Do you need to take that? Immediately, everybody leans in, because now everything that's happening is in the moment. That's what you're looking for in presentations, right? You want lean in moments, moments where people are really excited about what you're saying. They haven't heard it before, or they really want to take a note on it and see where you're going to go with this. When you're present, there's an electricity in the room. And that's what you learn when you improvise. You learn how to recognize those moments, how to be in that space comfortably. When we get nervous, when we're giving a presentation, we tend to close off, and this is literally a physical reaction. Our body closes off a lot of our other senses so that we can concentrate on just this narrow thing. We go into that fight, flight, or freeze mentality. So my suggestion is try and get to a place where you can go to a fourth state, which I like to call play. If you're in a play state, your energy level is, instead of, you know, ringing the bell at 10 where you're nervous and you're all of that, instead you're at about a 5. You're active, you're present, you're aware, you're able to access your knowledge and your experience. You're able to bring all of that together in the moment. So now people are, you know, interested in what are you going to do next? How is this going to relate? And now that conversation becomes more possible, and it's not a presentation anymore. Now it's something I'm involved in because we're sharing this experience. So if you can get to a place of play, it's a really great state to be in, to have fun with your audience. And I'll make that distinction a little bit. I'll turn things back over to Ray, but there's a huge distinction. Cody, I think you scored it perfectly. You underlined it in terms of those two people in the audience who were no longer laughing at the joke that he just made, right? Because he was making fun of them. Now, that's a different scenario. A stand-up is on guard on stage, and they need to be able to do battle with the audience with hecklers sometimes, right? So it's a great response in that scenario. In most of our presentations, we don't want that scenario. And instead, we want to play with the audience, have fun with them instead of make fun of them. Huge difference, and incredibly different reaction from the audience as well. One gets them on your side and has them playing with you in a conversation. The other gets them defensive and, oh, I hope he's not going to pick on me, or she's not going to pick on me. So that play mindset allows you to do that. So if there's a big takeaway I'd love for you to walk away with today, is to really try and attain that play state. Ray, I'll turn it back over to you and let you talk a little bit about setting people up for really how the math of putting humor together works, and how you can teach people to be funny, because people have a sense, right, that they're either funny or they're not. Ray, you prove them wrong all the time, that anybody can be funny, right?
Yeah, I'm a kid that used to wear a bucket on my head so you wouldn't talk to me, and wound up being a stand-up comic. And people don't understand the importance of humor or the process that it does follow. For example, we've all met strangers, right? Sometimes it's magical. Sometimes it's creepy. Well, what's the difference between magical and creepy? Right? The number one thing that most people are probably thinking right now, oh, it's the vibe. Well, what the hell is a vibe? And usually if I dial this down and I throw it out there, people will tell me it's the tone. So if the tone is what makes people creeped out. So if I said, hi, what's your name? That's magical, right? Right? No, it's creepy, I guess. So I should change my tone to make it less creepy. Hi, what's your name? That's even creepier, isn't it?
Yes, yes, it is.
Yeah. And what happened when I did that and I yelled and I screamed, what happened? You can see it on people's face when they're creeped out. They pull back. Even on Zoom, y'all pulled back and you furrow your brow and you duck your chin. Well, why do you duck your chin? That's the most vulnerable area of your body. And you're trying to protect yourself by doing that. Well, what happens when you laugh? You throw your head back. Laughter is instant trust. It's instant acceptance. What I'm saying when I laugh at you is, look, you can go ahead, kill me. Go ahead. There's my throat. I trust you that much right there. And so what laughter is, instant trust, instant acceptance. It's the backbone of trust. Humor is the backbone of friendship. And understanding that, even if you're never going to use it professionally or never going to use it in a speech, in your interpersonal conversations, that's why it's so important, so important. And it's really a process. And I'm going to define humor real quickly. And it's just it's like I before E except after C. You have to know the rule before you break it. So you may not agree with my rule. I'm taking this from the Humor Research Lab in Boulder, Colorado. It's a benign violation of a norm that surprises you. A benign violation of a norm that surprises you. It can't hurt. If Jim Coley and I walk down the street and we're friends and I trip and I fall, the first thing he does is laugh at me, right? You idiot, you fell. But if I get up and my arm's broken, he's like, oh, that's not so funny anymore. Until the arm heals. And then he laughs again. Because once that wound is healed, it's okay to talk about. And we don't talk about we don't show our open wounds, but we show our scars all the time. Check that out. Look there. I got this on a, whatever, however you got it. But and it has to surprise you because you can't tickle yourself. And so that's just a basic concept. That process, understanding that, will be able to start you down the path of being funny. And I think what we should do now is kind of give everybody like a tip or two along the way, something that you think would help them out. Either you guys got one right now that you think would be real good?
I think one of this is a tip, and I guess a tip for me is, start learning comedy passively, and that's listen to more comedy. Listen, and the reason I say that, and the value of listening to comedy and taking from that and starting to learn other people's jokes is it takes and injects new ideas, new perspectives, flexible thinking into your mind. Basically what a joke does is it takes a situation and it brings something from the outside into that situation. And when you're hearing comedy, listening to comedy, you're taking ideas from outside of yourself and incorporating them into your own thinking. Some of them might be useless, but some of them will be amazing. It will change how you view a perspective. It's sort of like the opposite of improvisation, which is improvisation talks about being in the moment, and jokes take something from outside of the moment and inject it into the moment. And that can change the way that people think. That can change, your perspectives. It can create creativity, loosen people up because it's something that wasn't in the moment. It's from the outside. So that's why I would say, take ideas, take comedy from outside of yourself and incorporate it into your thinking, your perspectives.
I have a great quote exactly on that topic, Cody. It's nobody ever got funny by sitting down and writing humor. They got funny by taking people's jokes and telling them and creating laughter. And the person that said that, Cody Cotulla.
That's right.
Yeah. Jeff, what do you got? Is it?
Yeah, I think, listen, we're wired to hear and tell stories, right? You all know that. It's all right to tell stories of your own vulnerability, of the mistakes that you've made. and share that with the audience. Not, you want to, brevity is the soul of wit, right? So you want to keep things short and punchy and moving along. But it's perfectly acceptable to say, I had this great deck worked out for this presentation. I did not bring that deck. It would have been awesome. Would have been great. I completely forgot. I had to help my daughter finish her homework. And so what I do have to show you is my daughter's homework. Who's up for seeing that? Anyone? No? All right. So I tell you what, we're going to use my older deck. I know you've all been there, right? That idea immediately tells a story of a little bit about you. And it also shares a little vulnerable space about you. That, listen, we're all human and I made a mistake. If ever you get up on stage and you make that mistake or something happens, we've all been there, or at least I know the three of us have been there. The sound has gone out. The lights have gone out. The projector went out. People got into the room late. There's a fire drill. I had to clear a room of 1,500 people for a fire drill and then get them back into the room after it was over. I've had to tell people that a member of the event or the audience passed away during the night, but we're going to go on with the show. Our shared humanity is what makes us compelling up on stage. And that shared humanity is also about sharing that idea that humanity is livable because of humor. We exist and we can keep existing because we have humor to lighten the load. So I would say, feel free to share those vulnerable moments. Feel free to share that in a nice, well-crafted story if you have that. If not, if something is happening in the moment, acknowledge the fact, didn't expect the fire alarm to go off, but they're telling me, let's all practice standing up. Let's practice walking out of the room. We're going to be great at this. Be in the moment, but also be human while you're in that moment.
So New Year's Eve, Williams, California, the Williams Fire Department hired me to come out and do a show. And it's a fun night. And the president of whatever you call the president of the fire group is, he's talking about how much fun they're having. He's raising glasses and he says, before we bring our comedian up tonight, let's talk about the guys that passed away this year.
Yeah.
And then he said, okay, now Ray Engan. And I walked up there and said, those guys that passed away, they wanted you to have the best New Year's Eve. Raise your glass. Here's to them. And they went, yeah. And so I saved the moment right there. But you've got to be in the moment to be able to react with the moment. Everything you say has a string attached to it. And when somebody says something, that's still there. If you pull on that string at any moment, you can bring people to whatever moment you want with that. But a couple of quick tips that I think help people get funny faster is funny people focus not on the logic of the idea, but on the logic of the words. And as such, your words can be interpreted in many different ways. The best example I could give you to look at this right now, the Geico commercials. We just bought a house, we're having ant trouble. And then the woman walks in and goes, oh, you're slouching, Tony. You're slouching. Look at this. This expired. It's expired. And if you can take a phrase or a word and interpret it in two different ways, on the slide deck on the Kiwi Live thing, I've got 3 pages of these two-way options in there that will allow you to kind of look at things differently. The word scent can mean a bunch of different things. Mine can be several different things. And my father always looked at the logic of the words, not the logic of the idea. So these double entendre, two-way option type things, that's the fastest way I think that you can do to be funny.
I think also, if I could throw one more in, you reminded me, specificity. Be specific. Instead of saying I was in a parking lot. I was in a parking lot of the Jewel that I was going to get my weekly cookie pack that I eat during Game of Thrones. Anyway, I'm in the parking, right? You want to be as specific as possible in any opportunity, because what that does is it helps paint the picture. And then typically with humor, at some point, you're going to flip the script. You're going to flip that picture around, but everybody's got it. They've been building world building in their head. And then you can have some fun with that as well. Right. And then that helps with the wordplay too. So I would say add specifics to your story whenever you can.
And,
Yeah,
and
I mean, I think that's great. I have specifics. I just want to say one thing is, I think one of the things about comedy that I think about, because I tell a lot of, I mean, like I said, I share jokes. I like to do that. And I think one of the things to realize is some of the things we learn about comedy aren't actually true. One of the things you're going to learn is that people say, well, it has to appear spontaneous. And that's not true. I mean, I told you a story early on that I've clearly told many times. In fact, I tell you that I told it many times. And what people don't want you to necessarily be spontaneous. It's great if you are. It's great if you respond to somebody dropping something, as Jeff said, or a phone ringing. But really what people want they want to know why you're saying what you were saying now. So if you have a joke to tell, you want to be able to tie that joke into the situation. I call it the 3 R's. It's, is it relevant to the situation? How can I make it relevant? Is it related to the situation, what we're talking about? Is it something that happened recently? And I think using those techniques, you can inject a story, a joke into a situation that you might not otherwise be able to do it. There's a big difference between saying, oh, here, I have a joke to tell you, which makes people kind of lean back and go, oh no, not another joke. And saying to somebody, you know what you just said reminded me of a joke that I heard. Because then you're connecting something they've done, something they've said, something happened in the situation to a joke, and you're telling them, hey, I'm going to tell you something. I'm sharing something with you that I think is relevant. And you're not saying, here's something funny. You're saying, here's something that is interesting that I'm going to share with you. So that's something to think about, is don't worry about being spontaneous. Instead, worry about, as Jeff said, being in the moment and sharing your prepared humor, if you have it, by making it relevant, related, or recent to what's going on.
And one of the words that I use to kind of get people to look at these things too, the word is awe, AWE. There's 2 E's though, but it's actions, words, expressions, and emotions. And especially in Zoom, your face is so important. I got a lot funnier once the Uncle Fester face could get closer to y'all and just kind of look at it that way. So your expressions are a big part of it. Your emotions, the descriptors: sight, sound, smells, sensations. Sight, sound, smells, sensations. When Jeff said specificity, it's a lot better to talk about a lime green 72 Pinto that you bought for $100 that looks like a terrarium on wheels than it is say, I took a car to pick up my date. It just puts smiles on people's faces. And that's all this really is about, is just putting a smile on people's faces every day. You know what? I haven't seen a timer. Jim, where are we at? Or the timer? Because we should probably answer some questions.
Answer some questions and maybe help some coaching, but I'd love to hear some.
Yeah.
Both.
What questions have popped up?
So let me explain a little bit for our participants here. We've got a couple of opportunities to ask some questions for our professional comedians. So if you have some questions for the team, please put them in the chat and I'll relay them to Ray, Cody, and Jeff.
I saw some already flying by there. I saw one while we're waiting for maybe some other ones to populate. I did see, and thanks for joining us, Vivian. It's fantastic. Thanks for being here. Did you have a?
No, Vivian's our timer, Jeff. Vivian's our timer, so now we can see her.
Oh, I thought it was fantastic. She's joining us.
Deborah has a question. Deborah Weiner.
Yes, Wiener. And actually, that's something to make a joke out of. And our family business, Quick Screws International.
Wow, come on. You're the gift that keeps on giving.
Yes.
You're a Geico commercial all by yourself.
That's right. I have never really felt that I'm funny. And even though I have been told I can be basically when I'm, meet with a small group and just not even trying. So I've never done comedy. So how would you suggest getting started to be able to, I know it's like you said, it's about the tone, the word, timing, probably, and your emotions, like, coming out.
I'll jump in that maybe, and I'll say, I think, so first off, clearly you have a great sense of humor, right? And I think one of the things to recognize is that there's a sense of humor, and then there's the ability to take what you think is funny and make other people laugh, right? So there's a sense of humor and ability with humor. Again, it's easy for me. I think that by listening to comedy, you start to pick up the comedy, I think of it as the comedy idiom. And that gets into your brain, and you'll start to be able to take what you see as funny and turn it into something to say it in a way that other people find funny, and to do that intentionally. So that's my suggestion.
And here's another thing, Deborah, is that if there's 5 or 6 things that really make comedy pretty easy and pretty simple. And if you and I sat down for 15 minutes, I could find out what's missing.
Okay.
And usually there's more than 1 or 2 with things like that, but it's just little things that you pick up on. The biggest thing is people start focusing on the logic of the idea instead of the logic of the words. So,
or you go,
yeah,
go ahead.
Go ahead, Jeff.
No, I was just going to jump in. And you know what? There's also different types of humor. At Players Workshop, the school that I teach improv at is we teach about the different kinds of humor. There's parody, there's sarcasm, there's irony, there's a bunch of different styles of humor that can be used or touched on. Generally, all of us have one strength or one stronger one or 2 that we're really we lean towards. Look, Deborah, you led with your name and your company. Now, we would have just gone with Deborah. You could have eliminated all of that. You have a sense of what's funny, so you're already there. We all have a sense of humor. Let's just make that clear. Everyone can be funny in their presentation. It depends on what kind of humor and how you go about doing it, and what your presentation is about and who you're giving it to. So there's a couple other parameters that you can learn and how to apply them. But it absolutely is something that you can do. And Deborah, you're already halfway there, like Cody said. So I think you're in good shape.
So suggestions? Do I study with one of you?
Well, don't change your name. Yeah, study with
don't change your name.
Don't change your name.
So one of the things that's on the Kiwi Live thing in there are links to my calendar, Cody's calendar, and Jeff's website for the Players Workshop. I wanted anybody that was on here to be able to have 15 minutes of a conversation, because I know we're not going to be able to go deep with anybody in here and cover things deeply. So go in there, go and link on my calendar, pick a time, and we'll talk for, you can go to Cody, you can go to me. We'll talk for 15 minutes. So Cody also runs a group called the Joker's Lab, which meets on every other Sunday. So that's a
Comedy Conversation Club. We do
Comedy Conversation Club.
Yeah, it's called the Comedy Conversation Game, and it tells you about how to tell jokes and then insert them into conversations and support each other. It's a good time. It's
designed for the questions that you are posing right now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so in our yellow, we should probably coach somebody. I saw that Diane Plius had her hand up to get coached. I would love to have her come aboard. How do we do that?
Added her, but I think she disappeared. So
did she disappear?
See if I can find her again.
I see the yellow now. I get it. I get it.
Yeah, you get it now. Yeah,
this is a great system, you guys. You should use
this. There we go. There's Diane.
Toastmaster way.
What are you working on, Diane? How can we help?
I give presentations and they're packed full of info, but they're not particularly fun. They're too factual. I'm filling up people's heads and they say, oh, you know so much, but
Is there, I would just ask this question. Is there anything, what do you think is fun or funny about your topic and the things that you talk about?
Good question. Maybe one thing that's fun is I do franchise consulting is people have this stereotype that it's just McDonald's, that it's just French fries, that you need $1 million, and those really are all myths.
Yeah, I would say, and Jeff and Ray can jump in. I would say, I would say open up. Surprise! I would say tell a joke tell a McDonald's joke, tell a franchise, just tell a joke. And then connect it to your topic. It connects so easily to your topic. It's, everyone says, do you want fries with that, for example, right? And that's a little joke, it's a little humor. And you can say, it allows you to take a funny thing and use that as a way to connect into the seriousness of your topic. And it shows that you have a sense of humor about your topic, that you see something funny. That's my suggestion.
I think that's excellent. I think you can also, what are their biggest fears? What's your audience biggest fears about what you're going to talk about?
Their
Right?
biggest fears are A, they're going to lose a lot of money, and B, they're going to be embarrassed because they're going to fail.
Awesome. That is fantastic. Those are as high stakes as you can get, right? Shy of death, those are high stakes right there. Have fun with those stakes. Make a joke about those. Have a slide showing what's going to happen, how they'll lose everything and everything. Get that fear out there so that they can acknowledge it and go, okay, I'm not going to lose everything just by listening here. Diane's got a sense of humor and understands me. You've immediately created rapport with them. And then you're going to be able to have the conversation you want to have with them.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing is the ridiculous fact. Since you do use a lot of facts, if you're going through this whole process and you're saying, and the franchisee cost is 50,000 per person. And did you know the platypus has no stomach? And just pause and say, okay, I'll wait. And then everybody Googles that fact. Okay, so a million different things. I just found out that my link in the Kiwi Live thing has an extra little niche on the end. So I just put my my calendar link in the chat right there. So the Kiwi Live has everything else, but my calendar link, and Jeff's is on there because he didn't get it to me on time. Cody's hopefully works because I don't know if it has that little extra thing on the back. But humor is something that the reason you want to use it is, even if you never ever thought about giving another speech again, we all have jobs in one way or another. 84% of people think that the funnier person is doing a better job, whether they are or not. And the good news is, if you're not funny, but you try, you are almost at the same level as that person who is funny. The person who's way farther down, the person who doesn't try to be funny at all, and worse than that is the person who uses inappropriate humor. I would love to be able to talk to as many of you as could, take advantage of that 15-minute thing. It's in the chat right there. We got to wrap it up. And any last words, Cody and Jeff?
Have fun with having fun.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the great, there's a lot of humor out there, and there's a lot of humor in you, and, work with us or with other people to learn the skills for bringing that out and sharing it with the people around you and the people in the world.
Leave you with this. Find somebody that's funny. Don't look up to them, look into them. What is it that's making them funny? How's that for a little mind expander?
Yeah.
Send me an email. I'll send you a link to the calendar. I thought I had it down, but I think the other ones are working. Great to have you here. Thank you, Vivian, for joining us up here, and for Jim for being our host, and for Diane for coming and doing that. So we'll see you. And also, I'll be around later after the thing if you want to talk to me. I'll make sure I get the right thing by then, and I'll be in the breakout room at the end after Darren. So.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
How do we get back to the main room?
There it is in the chat.
Thanks.
I'm going to post it a few more times because people keep posting more messages. So look there. Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Cody. Great job.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.